4. When Larry McCullough had been at the top of his game, which seemed a lifetime ago lately, he had spent a blissful 6 months staying at the Hilton Hotel in London, all expenses paid courtesy of a real-life Arab oil sheikh he was working for, selling fake Saudi land rights to British and American oil companies. It had been a good gig while it lasted, but like so many of his ventures, had ended in a mini bloodbath at a London nightclub one late November evening. Larry had of course got away scot-free without a scratch, and 20 grand in used 10s and 20s. The sheikh hadn't fared so well, being tortured to death and all. The truth of it was, he was a real Saudi sheikh, of sorts, but didn't own a grain of sand over there, let alone the acres and acres he and Larry had sold. So it had all come to a bloody end, but hey, at least the food at the Hilton had been good. Larry had put on half a stone while he had been there. So where did it all go wrong this time? Larry mused as he prodded a fork at what Lewis had laughingly referred to as a full English breakfast, which was laid out and stayed on the plate in front of him. Lewis was sitting opposite him reading the paper. He pipped over it. "Larry, you've hardly touched that. What a waste. Starving children in Africa, etc., etc. Don't tell me you're a vegetarian." "Oh, that's what that is," Larry said, still prodding. "So, this black-chaired stuff must be... Nah, don't tell me. A toast? And the rubbery yellow and white thing? Come on, help me out here." Lewis sighed and put his paper aside. "Play nice," he said, and took the plate from in front of Larry and dumped its contents straight into the bin after rescuing a piece of toast for himself. Larry picked up his mug and looked into it. "And your coffee, which I assume this lukewarm black liquid is, tastes like shit." "That will be the arsenic," Lewis said, taking a bite of toast. "Should kick in a few minutes, by the way." "I'll look out for it," Larry said, draining his mug. He hadn't seen Peroni or the kid Jeff all morning and wasn't relishing the thoughts of another fun-filled day cooped up in the house from hell, especially with only Lewis for company. And he was getting increasingly frustrated at the lack of movement on the deal. He had been here for 2 days already, and there was no sign of the so-called man from the ministry they were all waiting on. He was having serious doubts about the whole thing, which wasn't helped by the fact that he had been unable to contact his no-good solicitor, Tommy Whitaker, since Larry had been moved from Scotland Yard. He made a mental note to try the slippery bastard again later. Whitaker was another one who would pay for all this shit he was having to put up with, disappearing off the face of the earth whilst he was stuck here. Larry looked across at Lewis, who had started doing the dishes. Christ, he thought. The guy was supposed to be a government bodyguard, and all he ever seemed to do all day was the housework. That, and taking great pleasure in winding him up. More than anything though, Larry hated the lack of control. He could deal with most situations if he was pulling the strings. But here he felt like the puppet, and it scared him. Still, he mused what with the stress and Lewis cooking he would at least lose a few pounds. But still, he missed the Hilton. "Here, Lewis. So, just how long you and I going to be subjected to your dubious company for anyway?" "Where the hell is your boss?" Larry asked. "Don't ask me," Lewis said with a shrug. "I'm just a little worker ant. They never tell me anything." "What's the matter, Larry? Eager to spill your guts?" "No, just to get away from your ugly mug. And also I'd like to talk to him about how I'm being treated around here. Why couldn't have I been put up in a fucking hotel, like they agreed?" Lewis turned to face him, drying his hands on a tea towel. He studied the old crook for a moment. "This again? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you come running to us after all your gangster pals turned on you? I didn't go running to anyone, Larry said coldly. Really? Lewis looked amused. That's not what I heard. I heard you really crossed the wrong people this time. The bad men are coming for you, Larry. You need us more than we need you. Larry wasn't having that. He put one elbow on the table and jabbed a finger at Lewis. Pollux, I can look after myself. I'm just waiting for the best hand, that's all. And it's coming. I can feel it. I didn't survive for this long just to get dead in some dingy doll's house like this. He relaxed his posture. I'll die aged 90 in sunny Brazil. Maybe Greece. Yeah, I've always liked Greece. Really? Lewis said. Tell you what, I'll make sure they bury whatever is left of you out there. How's that? All I'm saying is wait and see, Larry said and held his hands out defensively. He saw Lewis' face darken, so he added a sarcastic grin as punctuation. Tossing aside the tea towel, Lewis took a seat opposite Larry and fixed him with a steady gaze. He drummed his fingers on the table as he studied McCulloch. I've been reading your file, Lewis finally said. You should write a book. Colorful life, to say the least. Always one step ahead. Always ready to sell your soul to the highest bidder. And always on the winning team, no matter how many times you have to switch sides. Huh, Larry? No matter what that team might be? He paused, but never took his eyes off Larry, then said, Your mother must have been so proud. Larry shook his head and gave Lewis a look like he thought he was simple in the head. He leaned back and folded his arms. There was no way he was going to let this little shit intimidate him. If anything, he found it amusing he was even trying. He took his own sweet time before answering. And it just eats you up, doesn't it? Larry said softly. Sure, I've played dirty all my life. And yeah, granted, I might not be at my best right now. But you know, don't you, Lewis? You know deep down, I'm gonna come through this whole fucking mess set for life. For once, Lewis' reaction was not what Larry expected. Over this last couple of days, he had learned exactly how to get Lewis goat. The young man hated Larry, but hated even more the fact that he had to protect the bad guy this time, even at the expense of his own life. But this time, Lewis just smiled and had a look of genuine pity in his eyes. Larry frowned without realizing it. It was a look you would give to a dog before putting it out of its misery. And I know something you don't kind of thing. And it made Larry feel distinctly on edge. Then Lewis leaned forward with a look of pure mischief on his face. All I know is that I'm on the right side, Larry. That's good enough for me. Whatever happens over the next few days, in the end, he'll be just another anecdote. Sure, I might be dead, but I'm at peace with that. He said it with such genuine sincerity, it unnerved Larry all the more. But you, Lewis continued, you'll be just another lowlife who thought he knew it all. He lowered his voice for effect. You know those shadows? His voice was barely a whisper now, and Larry found himself leaning forwards to hear. The ones that keep you awake at night. I know what's in them, Larry, and I've got a feeling sooner or later, so will you. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Larry blurted out and sat back, annoyed with himself for being drawn in. A grin snaked its way across the Lewis face. He was enjoying the moment. I'm just saying that's all. I know it's coming for you, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to stop it when it does. Lewis, Both men jumped. The voice was sharp and Italian. Peroni was standing in the kitchen doorway with a face like thunder. Louis was about to speak, but she cut him off. That's enough. Out. And relieve Jeff. He's in the car. Now. She jabbed her thumb back over her shoulder. Without a word, Louis got to his feet and sheepishly left the room, staring at the floor as he went. What's his problem? Larry said, wondering what the hell had just happened. Peroni's face lightened a little. His problem? Why, Larry, his problem is all of ours. Just what in the world are we going to do with the infamous Larry McCulloch, huh? With this, Peroni turned on her heel and disappeared back through the door, leaving a bemused Larry to curse the day he'd ever agreed to this lunacy.